Adam Savage. Oh, no. Hey, Adam Savage here in my cave, and I'm answering questions from tested patrons, specifically on the subject of my show, MythBusters. Oh, I love answering these questions. Your guys' MythBusters questions are frequently brand new to me. And having spent 14 years doing press about that show, I think I have a little too much headroom here. There we go. That's a little better. Yeah. Today's question comes from Solbury. Solbury says, the blueprint segments at the head of each episode, where you and Jamie explain the myth to each other, always felt distinctly different than anything else. How did you navigate having such a heavily scripted segment integrated into an otherwise real show? Man, I'm here to tell you that the blueprint segments were rough on all of us. Yeah, that's hard work to do, man. So I think it's best to give you an overview of how the shooting worked. We would shoot in 3-month increments. Yeah, we would shoot in 3-month increments, blocks, we called them. And in a 3-month block, I can't remember how many episodes we would be able to get done. 12 weeks. It's usually something like 8 episodes or something in that period of time. Am I wrong about that? No, it might have even been only 6 episodes. At any rate, we would shoot in 3-month blocks, and the beginning of the block would always be a big fat week of story meetings and planning and all the pre-production to get rolling. And then we would frequently film whole stories before shooting the blueprints. And the reason is, well, it should be obvious. You can't shoot the end until you've shot the story. But also, maybe you shouldn't shoot the beginning even, because we would frequently have the whole structures of stories change while we were filming them. So we kind of learned to just line up the blueprints and do them in big blocks. So we'd maybe do those every 6 weeks, and we'd do like 3 or 4 episodes worth of blueprints at once. And it would be like a whole day, an entire day of filming in which we had to constantly come up with a new dumb joke between me and Jamie. I know that those guys also dealt with this, but I generally wasn't present for their blueprints. So you'd have to ask them what their experience was. But for me, I found it the toughest part of the job. And I think Jamie did too. I think I might have found it a little less tough than Jamie, simply because I have a performing background and I don't mind doing that. And Jamie, to his credit, you show him some words to say and he knows how to say them and get it right. Like, he's a pro. But there really was an aspect of trying to get into the narrative of each piece that you're doing together and make it somehow exciting while you're sort of lining them up and knocking them down. It gave me a tremendous amount of respect for people who are spontaneously funny with each other, like your average morning news show anywhere in America. The idea that those anchors and weather people and that, the team that makes up any given local morning news show, to be able to both report on the news and talk extemporaneously, spontaneously to each other is really hard to do and make it feel natural. Oh man, sometimes the end of those days would be so exhausting. You'd just be so spent because you gotta. To be on television, I'm just gonna say this is a kind of a universal thing. To be on television, and I'm gonna separate this from being on YouTube and being in reality. Let's separate this into 3 buckets. In reality, I'm quieter than you might imagine. Yeah, sure. I can hold court over a dinner table and tell a great story. Absolutely. But I think you'd be surprised at how quiet I am in my normal life. I am a loud and extroverted human being, but at the same time, what I found was to be on television, I had to push me plus 20%. Like when I push out 20% extra, which means I'm now giving 120% of my personality, then it comes across as like me with a little bit of extra energy. Like the television's kind of, you got to think about it like, yeah, it adds 10 pounds and it kills a whole bunch of energy. So if you have a really laconic delivery style, television is going to make you look like you're asleep or like having a stroke. So you got to push, you got to push out. You got to be a little more vibrant. You got to turn up the saturation, the vibrance on that performance. On YouTube, it's more like 5 or 8%. It's less than half in terms of when I watch videos of me here in the cave and I think about what works and what doesn't work, what I'm giving you right now is me plus about, it's me plus about 7 or 8%. I think that's pretty fair. So that's just a normal, like I'm building, I'm on television, I'm putting out 20 extra percent with every piece of camera, with everything that I'm doing. Oh, watch this, I'm doing my stuff. But with blueprints where you're reading scripted stuff, pushing out that extra bit, you ever had to hold a smile for an hour? Like your face gets really tired. Imagine then your voice and your whole carriage gets tired from the grind of pushing this out. I don't mean to sound like I am complaining about my job on television because it was a fantasy and I will be forever grateful. But you asked what was difficult and I'm going to tell you those blueprints were tougher on us than just doing the normal building, filming pieces to camera. Frequently we'd be running downstairs to make props, to bring back upstairs to use while we were shooting. That's how sometimes those days went. But man, I just remember them as a grind. Oh. And then there'd be days when you were like in a bad mood and you had to do blueprints. And I mean, again, I'm a professional and I can bring a performance to the camera even if I'm not feeling it. But there's a difference between doing that in the shop and doing that as a scripted piece. So I think it's a very astute question that you've asked, Solbury, because it's a totally different format and that's complex. And to be honest, I actually think that most reality shows have a little bit of difficulty with it. Because it is such a fundamentally different way of making television than to just filming what's going on as people are just talking off the top of their heads. Yeah. Oh man, we used to complain. I'm remembering we used to bitch about it. We totally would. And I just no regrets whatsoever. If I had to do a day's worth of blueprints right now, I would gladly, gleefully do it. But yeah, it could be a grind. Thank you so much, Solbury, for that awesome question. Tested patrons, your MythBusters questions are chef's kiss, the best. Thank you guys, and I will see you next time.